Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we will be covering heights and distances, which is based on the application of trigonometric identities and ratios that we have learned earlier. So from the CBSE board exam perspective, you can expect 8 to 10 marks from this topic in the form of VSA, essay, MCQs. And if you're lucky enough, you might get one question from this topic as the case study question, right? So here we can expect 8 to 10 marks at least. And this is one of the most simplest, I must say, and very scoring topic from trigonometry, right? So in this lecture, I'll be covering the basics of heights and distances and mostly how to solve these questions, because what I have seen and what my experience has been in the past is that the students are unable to figure out what exactly the has been given in the question and how to go about solving that question, right? So I'll make those things clear for you, and this is based purely on my experience with different students, and hopefully this helps you. So whenever we are solving questions on heights and distances, the first objective is to draw the diagram. Draw the diagram. In some questions, you will be given the diagram directly. In some, you will be given a word problem. You have to read, interpret, and then draw the diagram. So in heights and distances, this is a very important step. Next step is understanding the concepts of angles. And in this topic, we have two angles. One is angle of elevation, and the second one is angle of depression, right? So in the nomenclature front, it might look that these are two different things. But if you see that this angle of elevation and angle of depression are usually the same thing, are not usually, it's exactly the same thing, but it depends where the observer is located. So angles in heights and distances are defined from the perspective of the observer, right? So let me draw a small diagram here. So let's say I am standing on top of this building, right? This is my observer. Okay. And let's say there is another observer here. This is observer 1. This is observer 2. So we will understand how the angle of elevation and angle of depression works. So let's say from the perspective of observer 1, I'll just draw. So for observer 1. So basically the problem statement is that the observer 1 standing on top of this building is looking at observer 2 who is standing on the ground, right? So this becomes my line of vision. This becomes my line of vision, correct? And this is also the line of vision for observer 2 who is standing on the ground and looking at observer 1 who is standing on top of this building. So the line of vision for both the observers is the same. Now comes the definition of angle of depression and angle of elevation. So for observer 1, the angles are always defined with respect to the line of vision. It's always this angle that we define and not this. This is wrong. Why? Because this angle of vision, this angle is defined with the building, right? We have to define the angles always with the horizon and with the floor, or with the ground. Horizon and the ground. So when we define the angle, or rather, if I have to define the angle of depression, this will be the angle between the line of horizon and the line of vision. It's known as angle of depression D. Okay. So for observer 1, D is the angle of depression. Why angle of depression? Because he is observing something which is below his line of reference. Okay. In some books, you might have seen that this angle of horizon is also known as line of reference. It's the same thing. I prefer to call it horizon. So it can be line of reference as well. So D is the angle of depression. Why it's a depression? Because the observer 1 is standing at a point above observer 2, right? So whenever I'm observing something which is below my line of reference, then I will call that angle of depression, right? So this is for observer 1. Now for observer 2, who is standing on the ground and observing a person who is standing on top of a building, right? So this becomes the ground of reference, right? Or this also becomes the line of reference. This angle will be called the angle of elevation. Because why it's called elevation? Because I'm observing someone who is located at a point above my point of reference, right? So this E is known as the angle of elevation, right? Naturally, the line of horizon and this reference, these are parallel, and that makes the line angle of depression and angle of elevation equal, because by geometry they are alternate angles, right? Since the line of horizon and reference are parallel, D and E are alternate angles, right? Alternate angles. Therefore, D is equal to E. So this proves that the angle of elevation and angle of depression are the same thing for a given pair of observers. It's just the reference point which changes the definition, whether it's an angle of depression or angle of elevation. Now, if you observe one thing, that we are always forming the angles with the horizontal, right? And not the vertical. So this is known as the vertical. So always remember in trigonometry, unless specified in the question, if they just specify angle of elevation or angle of depression, we will always consider the angle with the horizontal, unless explicitly specified that this angle is with the vertical. 95% of questions will directly mention angle of elevation or depression. So that's a hint for us to consider the angle with the horizontal. I have seen students making mistake that they consider this angle as the angle of elevation, which is absolutely wrong. So kindly avoid these mistakes, and this will make this will rather help you in figuring out the diagram of any question in heights and distances, because this is where students struggle, and I hope I have made this concept clearer to you so that you do not make those mistakes and you can score your marks here. So for more content, please subscribe to this channel. I'll be posting a couple of reels with respect to questions on heights and distances, and which will be important from the CBSE 2026 maths exam point of view. So kindly follow the channel, and please let me know if you want me to cover any topic before your board exam in the comment section. Thank you.